In a crowded Chicago courtroom, a homeless man named James Carter stood trial for trespassing, his weathered face and tattered clothes marking him as just another vagrant to the onlookers. But when the judge heard his name, a long-buried connection surfaced, revealing Carter as a decorated war hero whose past bravery had once saved lives, including, unknowingly, the judge's own. What unfolded was a story of redemption, recognition, and a system forced to confront its failure to honor those who served, proving that a name can carry the weight of a forgotten legacy. James Carter stood before Judge Evelyn Harper in a Cook County courtroom, charged with trespassing after being found sleeping in an abandoned warehouse. At 47, he was a shadow of the man he once was, his face lined from years on the streets, his Army surplus jacket frayed at the cuffs. The prosecutor, Daniel Weiss, painted Carter as a repeat offender, citing prior citations for loitering and public intoxication. To the courtroom, Carter was a statistic, a homeless man cycling through the system, unworthy of much attention. His public defender, Sarah Nguyen, a young attorney with a heavy caseload, had little time to prepare, but she sensed something in Carter's quiet demeanor that hinted at a deeper story. Weiss began outlining the case. On a cold January night, police had responded to a call from a warehouse owner reporting an intruder. Officers found Carter asleep in a corner, surrounded by a few belongings: a backpack, a blanket, and a dog-eared photo of a young girl. Weiss argued Carter had no right to be on private property, emphasizing his history of minor offenses. "This is a pattern," Weiss told the jury. "Mr. Carter disregards the law, creating a burden on our community." The jury, a mix of working-class and professional Chicagoans, listened with neutral expressions, some already forming judgments based on Carter's appearance. Nguyen stood to defend Carter, her voice steady but rushed. She argued the trespassing was a minor infraction, born of necessity rather than malice. "Mr. Carter was seeking shelter in an abandoned building during a freezing night," she said. "He caused no harm, damaged no property." She introduced Carter's statement, where he explained he had nowhere else to go after a local shelter turned him away for lack of space. Nguyen, though pressed for time, had dug into Carter's background and found a key detail: he was a veteran. She mentioned this briefly, noting his Army service, but lacked specifics to flesh out his story. Judge Harper, a 55-year-old jurist with a reputation for fairness, listened intently. When Nguyen mentioned Carter's name, James Michael Carter, a flicker of recognition crossed her face. She paused the proceedings, asking Nguyen to repeat the name. "James Michael Carter, Your Honor," Nguyen confirmed. Harper's expression shifted, her usual stoicism replaced by a moment of hesitation. She called a brief recess, retreating to her chambers without explanation. The courtroom buzzed with confusion, the jury exchanging glances, Weiss frowning, and Carter himself looking puzzled but silent. In her chambers, Harper pulled up a file on her computer, her hands trembling slightly. 20 years earlier, she had been a young prosecutor in a different Chicago courtroom, handling a case involving a military operation gone wrong. A soldier named James Carter had been a key figure, a Green Beret who led a rescue mission in Afghanistan in 2002, saving a group of civilians and soldiers trapped in a firefight. One of those civilians was Harper's brother, David, a journalist embedded with the unit. Carter's actions earned him a Silver Star, but Harper had never met him, only heard his name through her brother's grateful recounting. Could this be the same man? Harper returned to the courtroom, her composure restored but her mind racing. She asked Carter to take the stand, a rare move for a trespassing case. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice measured, "can you confirm your military service?" Carter, speaking softly but clearly, outlined his past. He had served 12 years in the Army, including 3 tours in Afghanistan as a Special Forces operative. He described the 2002 mission, detailing how he and his team extracted a group of civilians and soldiers under heavy fire. His account matched the report Harper remembered, down to the date and location. The courtroom fell silent as Carter spoke. He explained how he left the Army in 2008, struggling with PTSD and unable to adjust to civilian life. His wife left, taking their daughter, Emily, now 14, whom he hadn't seen in years. He drifted, lost his job as a mechanic, and ended up on the streets, his medals tucked away in his backpack, worthless in the face of hunger and cold. "I didn't mean to trespass," he told the court. "I just needed a place to sleep." His voice carried no self-pity, only a quiet acceptance of his circumstances. Gwyn, sensing an opportunity, asked Carter to elaborate on his service. He recounted missions with precision, dates, locations, names of comrades, his memory sharp despite his hardships. The jury leaned forward, their earlier indifference replaced by curiosity. Weiss, caught off guard, objected, arguing Carter's military history was irrelevant to the trespassing charge. Harper overruled, allowing Carter to continue. "This speaks to his character," she said, her tone firm. Weiss sat down, his confidence shaken. Harper then called for a private meeting with Gwyn and Weiss in her chambers. She disclosed her potential conflict of interest, explaining her brother's connection to Carter's mission. "I need to know if this is the same James Carter," she said. Gwyn, realizing the stakes, requested time to gather records. Harper granted a 24-hour continuance, instructing Gwyn to contact the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Army for verification. Weiss, sensing the case slipping away, argued for impartiality, but Harper assured him she would recuse herself if necessary. Gwyn worked through the night, reaching out to military contacts and a VA caseworker who had assisted Carter years earlier. By morning, she had confirmation. James Michael Carter, born June 12, 1977, was indeed the Silver Star recipient who led the 2002 rescue. She also obtained his service record, detailing commendations for valor and leadership, and a letter from a former commanding officer, Colonel Robert Gaines, praising Carter's courage. The records painted a picture of a man who had served with distinction, only to be abandoned by a system ill-equipped to support veterans with PTSD. Back in court, Gwyn presented the documents, and Carter's identity was no longer in question. Harper, her voice steady but emotional, addressed the courtroom. "Mr. Carter's service to this country is undeniable," she said. "His circumstances do not diminish his contributions." She turned to Weiss, asking if the prosecution wished to proceed with the trespassing charge. Weiss, under pressure from the jury's attentive gazes and the weight of Carter's story, moved to dismiss the case. Harper granted the motion, but not before addressing Carter directly. "You are not invisible," she told him. "This court sees you." The dismissal was just the beginning. A court reporter, present during the proceedings, shared Carter's story with a local journalist who published an article titled, "Homeless War Heroes Trial Stuns Chicago Court." The piece detailed Carter's service, his fall into homelessness, and Harper's recognition of his name. It went viral, shared across social media with hashtags like #HonorJamesCarter and #VeteransDeserveBetter. Public outcry followed, with citizens demanding better support for veterans. Donations poured into a fund set up by a local nonprofit to help Carter get off the streets. Harper, moved by Carter's plight, connected him with a VA counselor, Linda Torres, who specialized in PTSD. Torres secured Carter a spot in a transitional housing program and enrolled him in therapy. A veterans advocacy group, led by former Marine Captain Marcus Reed, offered Carter job training and connected him with a mechanic shop willing to hire him. The shop's owner, a veteran himself, had followed Carter's story and wanted to give him a chance to rebuild. Carter's daughter, Emily, saw the news coverage and reached out through the nonprofit. She and her mother, now living in Ohio, had lost contact with Carter after his struggles intensified. Emily, tearful but hopeful, wrote him a letter, which Gwyn delivered. "I miss you, Dad," she wrote. "I'm proud of you." Carter, reading the letter, broke down, his first real connection to his past in years. He began weekly calls with Emily, their bond slowly mending. The case had broader impacts. Mayor Cynthia Evans, responding to public pressure, announced a task force to address veteran homelessness in Chicago. The task force partnered with the VA to streamline housing and mental health services, citing Carter's story as a wake-up call. The police department reviewed its handling of homeless individuals, implementing sensitivity training and partnering with shelters to divert minor offenders like Carter to social services instead of jail. Carter's life began to stabilize. He moved into a small apartment, started therapy, and took the mechanic job, his hands finding purpose again. He visited Harper's courtroom months later, dressed in clean clothes, to thank her. "You gave me my name back," he told her. Harper, humble, credited Nguyen and the community. "You were never forgotten," she said. "We just needed to be reminded." The story of James Carter became a rallying cry. Veterans groups used it to advocate for funding, while schools taught it in civics classes as an example of individual impact. Carter spoke at a veterans event, his voice stronger now, urging others to seek help. "I was lost," he said, "but one courtroom, one judge, one moment brought me back." His trial, sparked by a name that stunned everyone, proved that heroism doesn't fade, even under the weight of hardship, and that justice can restore what time has taken away.